I'm Lord Kalbardr from Osprey and Meridies. In today's topic, we're going to be covering tarot. And no, I don't mean the mystical, magical art of divination, which I could teach that as well, frankly. But we're going to be covering the actual tarot game, or what was played in period using what we know as tarot cards. So first, I want to talk about the actual cards, and then we're going to watch a video about some of the sort of the rules. I was going to do a live presentation of the rules, but being that I'm by myself, and even with if I bring in my partners, I've only got 3, and it takes 4 to play. So I figured I've got to find a video that does a really good job of explaining that. We'll play that, and then we'll kind of talk about it. But first, I want to talk about the cards. Her ladyship Jane did a really good job yesterday of talking about history of playing cards, and she touched on a lot of the topics. From a purely games perspective, the thing you want to look at is what's the composition of the deck. You know, I don't care as much about what they look like or what the history of them are. I do care because it's one of the part of what I research. But from this perspective, I want to know how it's played. What are the rules? You know, you could realistically take some index cards and make card games out of them. They're not pretty, but they'll function. So the tarot cards, or the cards that we use for French tarot, tarot, tarotki, depending on what language you went into, were very similar to what we know of as regular playing cards today. And also, if you've ever seen a tarot card deck, it will match that as well. So a standard tarot deck from modern times has 4 suits, numbered 1 through 12, or numbered 1 through 10, and with 3 or 4 face cards. And then they also have the 0 through 21 in the major arcana or the trump suit. And that's fairly common. Now, what the suits were and what those trumps or the 5th suit were called, what they had on them, that varied wildly. There were some patterns where you had, spades were always sort of spade-like, the bells were always sort of bell-like, hearts, clovers, you had some similarities there. But then there also, depending on what artist did them or what person was commissioning them, it could have went very differently. So for instance, I have a standard, it's not the Rider Waite deck, but it's it's a tarot card deck, but it's very much for mystical divination sort of thing. But the suits that I have are pentacles, cups, swords, and wands. So what's interesting is you have the pentacles and cups, which are both feminine symbols, and you have the swords and wands, which are both masculine symbols. So you have 2 reds, 2 blacks. That's always seems to be sort of the pattern. There's always 2 sort of feminine, 2 sort of masculine, or 2 darker, 2 lighter. Again, it doesn't really matter as much because it's, especially with the game we're looking at, and it matters more about matching the suit than it does about the suits being in certain orders, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to keep it over here, make sure I don't miss anything from the other chat. Cool. Awesome. All right. Oh, hey, Agnes. Welcome. So let me look. I can scroll. That's awesome. Okay, so the deck has mentioned 78 cards. So we're used to a 52 card playing deck, which is your 12 cards per suit. So 1 through or ace through 10, Jack, Queen, King. That's what we're used to. The tarot deck was 4 suits of cards that were 1 through 10, so an ace through 10 or 1 through 10, a jack or page, a knight, a queen, and a king. So it adds a card in from what we're used to in a modern deck. And then the trumps were 0 through 21 or 1 through 21 with an extra card. So depending on how you looked at it, the 0 was either a part of or not a part of the trump suit. It has its own special rules. A lot of times it was counted separately. But the 1 through 21 were often numbered. So in the deck that I have here, fortunately I sorted ahead of time. So this is, for instance, it's going to show up. Come on, you can do it. Bam, close enough. So you see it has a name, it has a number. There we go. So they are numbered so you can see which one comes in which order. And that does matter in this because they are ordered 1 through 21 in value, weight, that sort of thing. All right, so you need a set of cards, and you need something to keep score on. Pen and paper, in our case, we have tablets and computers and cell phones and whatnot. But in period, they would have scratched on some piece of paper or just kept track in their heads potentially. The counting methods were, I'm sure, just as varied as the cards. All right, so let's get into some rules. We have a nifty video to watch. Let me full screen that.
Hello and welcome to How to Play French Tarot, presented by GatherTogetherGames.com. This video will cover how to play the card game French Tarot. The video will start with the general concepts and gameplay and get into more of the details for the game. To play, you will need a 78-card French Tarot deck. The French Tarot deck contains 5 suits of cards. The trump suit ranks from 1 up to 21 and includes a card known as the Fool. The other 4 suits are hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs. These rank with the king being the highest, which is marked with an R, then the queen marked with a D, a knight marked with a C, and the jack marked with the V, then 10 down to the 1. Each player is dealt 18 cards, 3 cards at a time. 6 cards are also dealt to the middle while dealing the player's hands. Here, 1 card is being dealt to the middle before the dealer's cards. The object of the game is to score points. Points are scored by a successful bid winner based on the cards won in tricks throughout the round. The Fool, 1 trump, and 21 trump are known as honor cards and are worth 4.5 points each. The kings are also worth 4.5 points. Queens are 3.5 points, knights are 2.5 points, jacks are 1.5 points. All other cards are worth 0.5 point. A player's score can increase by bonuses and multipliers that will be covered in more detail in the scoring section of this tutorial. Going back to the hand that was dealt earlier, I have flipped up each player's cards for you to see. In an actual game, you will keep your cards hidden from the other players. Each player will have a chance to become the taker for the round or can pass on bidding. During the round, the taker will play alone against the other 3 players. There are 4 possible bids. From lowest to highest bid is a small, a guard without, and a guard against. Depending on the bid, the taker's score will be multiplied by a factor during the scoring phase. The bid winner will get to use the 6 cards in the middle with a small or guard bid. With a guard without bid, the taker doesn't get to see the middle cards, but gets the points from the middle cards at the end of the round. With a guard against bid, the middle cards are not seen, and the points from the middle cards are given to the 3 opponents at the end of the round. The player right of the dealer is first to bid. Player 2 passes on bidding. The bid moves right to player 3. Player 3 bids guard. The bid moves to player 4 who passes. The bid moves to player 1 who passes. Player 3 wins the bid with guard. The 6 cards in the middle are flipped up for every player to see. Player 3 then takes the 6 cards into their hand and will choose 6 cards to set aside. The set aside cards will count towards player 3's card points at the end of the round. The player right of the dealer will lead the first trick. Player 2 leads the 5 of diamonds. Play moves counterclockwise to player 3. A player must play a card in the same suit as the card that was led whenever possible. Player 3 doesn't have a diamond to follow suit. When a player cannot follow suit, the player must play a trump card. There is one exception. The Fool card can be played at any time instead of following suit or playing trump. Player 3 plays the Fool. Player 4 and player 1 follow suit with diamonds, and player 1 wins the trick with the highest ranking card in the lead suit. There is another exception with the Fool card. The player of the card gets to keep it even though it does not win the trick. Rules around the Fool card will be explained in further detail later in this tutorial. The player that wins the trick will lead the next trick. Player 1 leads the King of Hearts. Player 2 and 3 follow suit by playing heart-suited cards. Player 4 doesn't have a heart-suited card and has to play a trump-suited card. Player 4 wins the trick as trump-suited cards outrank all other suited cards. Player 4 leads the next trick, and play continues until all cards have been played. At the end of a round, the taker will add up the card points won during the round. 4.5 points for honor cards and kings, 3.5 points for queens, 2.5 points for knights, 1.5 points for jacks, and 0.5 point for all other cards. Player 3 won 48 card points during the round. The amount of card points needed for a taker to be successful depends on the amount of honor cards won by the taker. A taker with no honor cards needs 56 card points to be successful. One honor card needs 51 card points. 2 honor cards needs 41 card points. All 3 honor cards needs 36 card points. Player 3 has 2 honor cards with the 1 of trump and the fool, and needed 41 card points. Player 3 got 48 card points, so player 3 was successful as the taker. There are 3 possible bonuses a taker can get for additional points. If the last trick of the round was won by the taker with the 1 trump, it is a 10-point bonus known as petit. If the taker has 10 or more trump cards in hand to start the round, a handful can be declared. 20 points are awarded for 10 trumps, 30 points for 13 trumps, or 40 points for 15 trumps. The trump cards are shown to all opponents when declaring a handful. If the taker is able to win all the tricks, it is known as a slam. If the taker declares slam before the first trick is played, the bonus is 400 points. If the taker wins all the tricks without declaring a slam, the bonus is 200 points. A score is calculated using this formula. A score always starts with a base amount of 25, then the amount of card points away from the target card point value. The petit bonus is added if achieved. The amount is multiplied based on the bid made. Finally, any hand bonus and or slam bonus is added. For the example round, player 3 will start with the base amount of 25. 7 is added as player 3's target card amount was 41 with 2 honor cards, and player 3 got 7 over 41 with 48 card points. Player 3 did not get a petit bonus. The bid was guard for player 3, which is a multiplier of 2. Player 3 did not get a handful bonus or a slam bonus. The formula results in 64 points. The amount is lost by all opponents when a taker is successful. The opponent players all lose 64 points, and player 3 wins 64 points from each opponent for a total of 192 points. All the scores added together will always equal 0. The winner of the game is the player with the most points after playing an agreed-upon amount of hands, such as 15. A quick guide for French Tarot is available through the link in this video's description. Use it to help you learn as you play. A player must follow the lead suit by playing a card in the same suit that was led whenever possible. If a player cannot follow the lead suit, the player must play a trump card. If a trump card has been played already, the player must play a higher trump suited card if possible. If a player cannot follow suit or play a trump card, any card can be played. The fool card can be played on any trick at any time, even if the player can follow suit. The fool is kept by the player of the card no matter which player wins the trick. By taking the fool out of the trick is 1 card short and must be replaced. The player that retained the fool card must replace it with a half-point card from their score pile. There is an exception with the fool if it is played to the last trick. The fool will win the trick if the player has won all other tricks during the round. If not, the fool transfers to the opposing team regardless of who wins the trick. The fool can be considered a trump card when declaring a handful. If the fool is led, the next player can play any suited card. The suit of this card becomes the lead suit. If all players pass on bidding, the cards are collected and redealt. When setting aside cards, the taker cannot set aside kings. If a player announces a slam but does not win all the tricks, the player loses 200 points. If a taker is unsuccessful in making the card points needed, the score is calculated and paid by the taker to each opponent. For example, if the taker needed 41 card points but only got 38 card points, it would be scored as follows: 25 base points, plus 3 points for being 3 card points away from the target card points, no petit bonus, a 2 multiplier for a guard bid, and no other bonuses. The total is 56 points, going to each opponent, and a loss of 168 points by the taker. That wraps up how to play French Tarot. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and get more game tutorials by subscribing to our channel, GatherTogether Games. Thanks for watching.
Alrighty, so I get that was a little fast. I do have all the rules written out there, so I do want to shout out to GatherTogether Games. They put some awesome tutorials together. So if you like game tutorials, go check them out. So I want to answer a question first, and then I'll go into the actual. I'm going to sort of step by step in some of those rules and clear some things up that I had trouble understanding when I first read it. So, the question I saw was, what if your deck does not have numbers on the major arcana? Then you can't use it. Is the short version. Basically, the numbers are what matters, not the symbols or not the pictures or whatever. So with standard tarot decks, modern tarot decks rather, the major arcana is varied in what's in there, so it'd be hard to say, oh, we'll always put it in this order or whatever, and then you're also going to have trouble keeping track of that during the game. So if you have a spare tarot deck that you don't mind writing on, you could just write numbers on them, sort of number them in a way. I wouldn't do that with one that you use for any kind of other mystical purposes, though. All right, let me... Right screen. There we go. Okay. So this handout's in the Facebook event. Feel free to grab it, but I will go through it here as well. Okay, so the game starts. I want to point out a thing that I thought was interesting first too. This game is, instead of it being a partners game or a 4 singular persons playing game, the actual play always ends up being a single player versus 3 players. Now that single player rotates as far as who it is. But I thought it was very interesting. So a lot of times when we see like hearts or spades or other trick-taking games, there generally is a partner base or each player plays independently. So this one is, whether they're playing independently, every round 3 of those players will be on a team, so to speak, playing against the 4th player. All right, so to start the game, each player is dealt 18 cards, 3 cards at a time, with the 6th card, with the extra card being dealt into the middle. So there'll always be a hand of 6 cards sitting in the middle, and then each player having 18. Obviously, the object of the game is to score the most points. Generally, there's going to be a set number of points, 500, 1,000, 700, or whatever. You pick your number. Obviously, the higher the number, the longer the game will last. From what I noticed, it seems to be a single hand could range anywhere from 50 to like 300 points. So 400 and 500 points from that region. So you don't want to do a number less than that unless you only want 1 hand. You want a higher number so that you have multiple hands achieving. But there are also negative points, so those numbers will fluctuate drastically depending on how well you do in a hand. So the person that determines the scoring is the bid winner. And that bid winner is determined based on a process that, to just a second, yeah, okay. We'll skip down to the bidding now. So each player will have a chance to bid on becoming the taker. Taker is sort of the lead person for the game for that hand, and that person can either accept it and make a bid, or pass and let the next person then make a bid. The bids from lowest to highest are small, guard, guard without, and guard against. Now, those words meant nothing to me when I first looked at it. I had to kind of like sort of process some of it. And even still, they're sort of odd phrases. And I'm sure there's probably stories behind it that I can find later about why they would choose those particular phrases for the bids. But, yeah. So the difference in the 4 bids is, 1, the number of points. There's a point multiplier that's applied to it. And how the center cards are affected. Okay, so the small or guard bid, so the 2 lower points, and basically you would choose what you want to bid based on how many of the tricks you think you could take. So how many high cards you have essentially. So if you've played spades or hearts, it's similar to similar fashion to how you would bid in spades or hearts. So the smaller guard bid, the 6th card would be flipped up, so all the other players can see them. And then the taker, person that won the bid, would then take those cards in their hand and then deposit 6 other cards to the side to their score pile. During a guard without bid, the taker doesn't get to see the cards, but does get the points from the cards, regardless. And then a guard against bid, the points in the middle are given to the other players. So guard against is a much higher multiplier. So if you were to achieve your goal, you would have a significantly higher score. But you are giving up essentially free points by doing that. So it is a trade-off. Potentially, you would lose more points on. All right. So deal the cards. The first taker makes their bid or passes. Once the taker has decided, you deal the center cards based on their bid. And we'll get the score. The bids make more sense when you actually look at the scoring. We'll cover that in a second, which bid to make. And it's based on a number of tricks, number of points rather, you think you can achieve. Then you go into the first hand, or the first hand, I guess. The player to the right of the dealer will lead the first trick. Now, the right of the dealer, not the right of the taker. So this may change based on how far the taker roll was passed. And they play any card. So the first card then sets the trick, sets what you have to play. So if I play a diamond, everybody else has to follow the diamond, unless you can't. So if everybody plays a diamond, the person who played the highest diamond then wins that stack of cards, puts them in their scoring pile. If somebody did not have a diamond, they have to play a trump, which is one of the major arcana in this case, or the extra suit of cards, the non-suited cards. And the person who plays the highest of those trump cards then wins the suit. Speaking of highest, so looking at card rank. So this is ranked highest to lowest. So obviously 21 to 1. 21 is the highest, 1 would be the lowest of the trump suits. In these suited cards, the king, the queen, the knight, the jack, and then the 10 through 1. Those are so whichever the highest in that row in that suit would win, or the highest in the trump suit would win. The honor cards, 21, 1, and full, that only matters if they're worth more points. And then there's a special rule if you have so many of them at the end of the scoring. All right, so first player leads, other players follow. Highest card in that pile goes to that person. The person who played the highest card then plays the next card. And they choose whatever card they want to. The other players then have to follow suit. If they can't follow suit, they play a trump, so on and so forth. Play will continue until all the players are out of cards. So every player should have an equal amount of cards, so they're going to run out on the last hand together. Let's see, let's go to other rules and we'll go back to scoring. All right, so a couple special rules. The fool card. So the fool, or the 0 of the trump, is a special card sort of all around. The fool can be played on any time, even if the player can follow suit, even if it's trump, it doesn't matter, the fool can always be played. The fool is also always kept. So even if I play the fool, for instance, and I don't win that suit because it's the lowest card, because I'm not going to, when that player takes those 4 cards, I get to take my fool back and put it in my scoring pile. Now, I do have to give them a card. So one of my half-point cards, one of my numbered cards, essentially, I would give them out of my pile to put in their pile, giving them an even number of cards. So the exception with the fool winning, so the fool's never going to win a trick because it is the lowest card, except for if it's the only trump, it would win. But also if it's the last trick, if it's the last set of cards played, the fool would win. There's a couple special rules in here about when you can pass and dealing with kings, and that's sort of specialty rules. So the cards in the middle, you can't set aside any kings. You have to play kings if you have them. And then we'll look at scoring because that's where some of this makes sense. Okay, so scoring, this is the hardest part in my opinion, looking at. If there's any questions, guys, please pop in the chat. And this is kind of droll and kind of boring. It's hard to really envision this or hard to play this by myself, but we're looking at it this way. So the scoring is the hardest part. Unfortunately, this is something you can really reference. There's a quick reference that I'll drop in the chat or in the Facebook event as well, made by the same people that made that video, that has all the scoring information on it. But basically, you have each card is worth a number of points, so you count your points up that way. And then there is a total number score formula. So everybody starts out with 25, and then you have bonuses, which is your target, you're away from your target score. So if you said, if you're as the taker, so only the taker scores. That's what matters. So the taker scores, everybody else doesn't score. And there's everybody's score is determined by one person. So you have your target score, which is right here. So the amount of card points needed is based on the number of honor cards. So the 0, the 1, the 21. So however many of those you have determine how many points you need, and that's having your pile determine how many points you need to win. So if you have all 3 honor cards, you only need 36 points. If you have 0 honor cards, you need 56 points. So it's much harder to achieve. So that's partly based on luck, but also partly based on when you play cards. So you find out your number of points you need. Then you look at your bid multiplier. So this is what you bid at the start of the hand, and then you go into the formula. So it's 25 plus the points away from your target score. So if you needed 51 and you got 54, then you get a 3-point bonus to your modifier. If you needed 51 and you got 49, then you get a 2-point bonus, but it's going to be a negative in the end for you because you lost. And then you have a petite bonus, which is the that last round is won by the fool. You get a bonus to that as well. And then you multiply that by your bid multiplier based on what you bid early on. And that's based on those 6 cards in the center. That's what determines your bid. You add in any handful bonus, which is if you had a certain number of trumps. And if you made a slam bonus, which is you said you would take all of them, then you get a bonus to that as well. All that's added together, that gives you a number of points. Now, if you won, if you made your score and you did what you needed to do, then you as the taker get that many points, and your opponents lose that many points. If you did not, however, then your opponents get that many points, and you lose that many points times 3. So if you look at the scoreboard, when you look at all the scores should always equal 0 on a line, because it's always a give and take of the points. Either the taker gets 3 times and the losers each lose 1, or the taker loses 3 times and the losers each lose 1, or the winners each lose 1 in this case. So I thought that was actually a really interesting thing. Usually it's just a point. Everybody, so somebody gets a point, somebody doesn't get a point, or everybody gets points. In this case, there literally is for every 10 points difference, it's a 20-point gap. So that gap will jump drastically, but also can jump back the other direction very easily. If you have one player that wins 2 hands in a row, they're going to be way ahead because their belts also went negative that many points. Okay, so it looks like, so in most trick-taking games I've seen, it's a number of points or a number of, like if you play like Uno, for instance, it's a number of points to achieve. In this, it's a number of rounds. So I guess that makes more sense. You play 10 rounds, 15 rounds total. I would guess it would need to be an even number so each player gets a chance at being the taker an even number of times. I don't know how much that matters long term, maybe. After 10, 15 rounds, it may not matter who was the taker early on, but I guess that would be at least make it fair, so to speak. So yeah, that's the long and short of it, guys. I don't want to continue to ramble on about this. I could though. So cards are interesting because they're literally a tool. I say this about when I talk the intro to board games. A lot of the stuff, it's just a tool to a game. So this is the French tarot, or I think Germans call it tarot. Spanish it's Tarachi. It's called Taraki. I'm sure I'm butchering all of his languages because I don't speak any of them. Sorry, Italian. But the game was very similar to where it was. It moved, it changed, it shifted. Obviously, it's changed significantly what we know now. People don't play this anymore. There's not even really a modern equivalent of it. Or the closest to it would be, like I said, hearts and spades. But even those have changed so drastically, and removing that fifth suit trains that as well. Herlacia Jane said an interesting yesterday I thought was a kind of odd, or not odd, but interesting note. So she mentioned that when card decks were made or bought, a fifth suit was always made, but that fifth suit is literally to replace the suit if you lost one. So I thought that was interesting, and I'd be fascinated to look into the mindset of where that came into be, if they really were making them just to have an extra, or if a fifth suit was found and was a trump suit like this and was misinterpreted as that potentially. I would guess it's probably not, because those suits shouldn't match. Because a set of suited cards, if you had 5 suits on a deck and you had hearts, stars, horseshoes, clovers, and blue moons, for instance, one of those would not look like a trump suit in this case, because it would need to be a drastically different suit of cards with different numbering and different arrangement. But I can see where somebody not knowing what it was, especially crossing language barriers, might misinterpret that. Or also maybe they shook a deck of cards and changed the game. It's always possible. I've seen that happen. So, questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? What do you guys think about this format? Everybody like this work? I know the video is kind of fast. I'll work on maybe some better ones next time. Everybody enjoying the virtual game symposium? I am. I'm loving it. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Sorry for my really messy background. I realize this is terrible video once I'm seeing myself in slightly larger view now. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to be in the chat, or I'll be in the event for the next couple hours watching other classes, but also be here for next week. So ping me whenever. If you have any questions, make sure you sign in. There's a sign-in list or sign-in sheet in the game. It's the same one for every class. Just click on that and then select this class as your sign-in. Feel free to leave comments in there. I do get to see those, so I have access to the spreadsheet, and I'll be actually sending those to the other teachers as well. They'll be sent anonymously, other than to me, so be nice, at least to me. But the other teachers will get their comments as well. So if there's nothing else, I'm gonna sign off. So it's been a pleasure, you all. Hope you enjoyed this, and this has been Lord Kalbardr Geiler in Kalbardr's Corner. Thanks, guys.